Hey everyone, it's Erica from Survivor 41, and I just had to support my dear friend Evvie on this project. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to share some advice. We all know I came out publicly last year at the age of 34, so I'm considered someone who came out quote unquote later. And I'm saying later with air quotes if you're just listening to the audio version of this. I actually think that you can't come out later because you come out at the perfect time for you, so it's impossible to be late. Anyways, I have experienced a lot of queer imposter syndrome, and I have talked to people who have come out as adults, and they have experienced queer imposter syndrome too, which I would describe as the feeling of not being queer enough. Whether you feel like you don't look queer enough, you haven't had enough queer experiences, or you haven't been out that long, really, for whatever reason, people don't feel valid and don't feel queer enough. So this is my Pride Month advice for anyone who might feel this way. Your queerness is not defined by being certain about your labels, because let's be real, labels change all the time. Your queerness is not defined by completing this checklist of queer experiences that you think you need to have. Your queerness is not defined by how you present to the world, whether it's more masculine, more feminine, or an exciting mix of both or neither. As long as there is something inside of you that's telling you you are queer, that is enough. And if that voice inside of you is loud and proud, or even just a whisper, it is valid and you are enough and you can be part of the queer community. So I hope that this Pride, you are kind to yourself, you celebrate Pride in whatever way you see fit. And no matter what you do, I hope you have a safe and happy Pride Month.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Pride Has Spoken, your official RHAP Gay Survivor podcast. I'm Matt Scott, and happy to be here with you, but I am not alone. I am joined by a couple of folks, including the one, the only, Dr. Evvie Jagoda. I just love to throw the doctor in there.
Thank you, Matt. It's lovely to be here as always. It's the best podcast. That's why you're listening to it. I'm so glad that we get to do this every year. It's so fun. And we could not do it without the one, the only Grace Leeder. Thank you for joining us, Grace.
Oh, I'm back. Here I am.
Okay. And just a quick pronouns check-in. Matt, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are he, him. Thank you for asking. Grace, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are she, her. Thanks for asking. And Evvie, what are your pronouns?
I use they, them. Thanks for asking.
We're back. We have another conversation happening, another Survivor feature. The folks already know. The one and only Kellie Nalbandian. Where's my bell? Where's my bell?
I love to do when Rob introduced her in Chicago and she went on stage and she went, eh. And her last name is my favorite Kellie thing I've seen her do. It was very funny.
Yeah, we have to ask for clarification on like the proper pronunciation.
You nailed it.
Oh, I did. Oh, wow,
yeah.
Look at that.
Well,
I'm on the now bandwagon.
Well, I actually don't know. Kellie will be
Kellie tweeted us
the arbiter of whether or not you pronounce her last name correctly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here. What are we doing? What's happening?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Evvie.
No, I was just gonna say, I think, stay tuned for a few minutes. And now the interview with Kellie is wonderful. We're so glad that she took some time to speak with us. You get to hear about some of her journey into discovering that she's a lesbian and how she met her wife and how she met her fiance rather, or how she met a certain other famous recently out queer Survivor winner. Leave it to you to figure out who that is.
Who could that be?
It's a great interview. And yeah. I am really.
I didn't know she was friends with Richard Hatch.
Okay,
before we get to the interview,
anyway, yeah.
Make sure a reminder as of last week, robhasawebsite.com/pridebuff. Pre-order the buff and donate the proceeds from the buff and the t-shirt that's also available on robhasawebsite.com/store. I don't know if I got that link right, but I'll make sure I do as we're talking so that we can donate the proceeds to Point of Pride.
And remember, you could get your buff for yourself. You could get one for a loved one. You could get all sorts of buffs. You could get 3 buffs just to wear by yourself. Maybe 4. Evvie, what's the most amount of buffs that you could possibly wear?
Oh, at one time, I mean, it's truly infinite. The sky's the limit, Matt. It's only a limit of your creativity, so easily 10, and of course, with every buff you buy, you are putting money directly in the hands of Point of Pride, which its mission is to make sure that trans people can get the healthcare that they need and other supports around that, whether that's free chest binders or femme shapewear, or directly giving money to trans people through their trans healthcare surgery fund. It's like a fantastic organization. So cover your body in buffs, cover your friends' bodies in buffs. This is an amazing organization that we're thrilled to support.
Yeah. So robhasawebsite.com/pride buff is for the buff. You'll either get the pre-order form, or if they're for sale, because we have 100 pre-orders, you'll just be redirected to the actual store, or you can also buy, and it is robhasawebsite.com/store. I looked it up, where you can buy the t-shirt in any color you would like. So, well, limited by the colors, but pretty much any color.
Oh, come on.
Any color in the rainbow.
That's right. Exactly. And maybe a few more. I haven't checked in a minute. But you know what? I will say, I think that, if you order or pre-order the buffs, let us know, tweet
Take
at
a picture.
us all the things.
Show us how you're wearing your buff.
Take a picture once you get it. But even if you pre-order it, let us know, let your friends know. Again, you could get them for friends, for family members, for the queer survivor loved ones in your life, the ally survivor loved ones in your life. So they're again, possibilities are limitless. What are we doing? Why don't we all only wear buffs?
In the buff, except for your buff.
In the buffs, yes.
And did we do it? Are we passing it to Kelly before?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah. So here is our conversation with Kellie Nalbandian.
It is my great joy and pleasure to welcome the one, the only Kellie from season 45. What the heck, guys? We got Kellie. Kellie, thank you so much for being here.
It's what the hell, guys. But I'll give you a pass on that one, Evvie.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love a gay podcast.
Yes.
Love queer spaces. So let's do it.
We love it. And we're so happy to have you here. Happy to dive into all of the things. And I just have to say, shout out to the George Washington University, which we are GW grads. I'm not going to make us do the fight song, but just
I was an orientation leader, so I know it very well.
And this is the thing. I applied to be an orientation leader. I was never one, but this is the difference between us. You are iconic at whether at GW, whether on Survivor.
No.
Yeah.
Honestly, Matt, you really give Colonial Cabinet energy, so I'm shocked that you never were on.
It's fine. They missed out.
It's retired now anyway. No more. So
I was gonna say Colonial Cabinet. Quite a name.
Yeah,
canceled.
It has been canceled for good reason. Origin story.
Wow. No, well, Kellie, we're so glad to have you here, and I love that you right off the bat corrected me about something that I was remembering wrong from your season, because really, a huge reason that we love to have this podcast is because there's so much that isn't shown about us as people on Survivor. And I think you're someone who, only a very small fraction, I think, of yourself was shown on the show. And we really didn't get to hear a lot about some key parts of you. So we're really glad that we get to have you here to dive into some of it more. So if you don't mind, we'll start off with, Matt's favorite question that I'll borrow here. He loves to ask people, we see a version of you on the show, but if you were just to introduce yourself to our audience, what would you say? Who's Kellie?
Oh my God.
Who are you?
That's such a hard question, guys. I would say, I am 30 years old and I'm never getting older. I grew up in Connecticut. Now I live in New York. I'm a nurse and I am a queer person, but I identify as a lesbian, and I have pretty much since the end of high school. I kind of knew, but no formal coming out until I was at GW. Thank you, GW, for providing me a great space to do that. And, and now being a Survivor player is another big part of my identity. And as you were saying, Evvie, obviously I'm very grateful for my edit. I feel like they gave me a lot of strategy in explaining my position in the game and, to make the blind side a whole moment. But we didn't really get any of my backstory, which I thought was such a huge reason why I was cast, and it was important to me to, represent for, queer women, for lesbians, for nurses. And so I always wished that more of that made the show, because it was so much, I feel like, part of my casting journey, a part of how I played the game, and just like, you know, you just want people to understand who you are in totality, not just in this vacuum. So, you know, I'm grateful for the strategy edit, but I do wish more of that story, especially like my queerness, was highlighted on the show. Especially my season had 3 queer women, and not much was said about it. So it's like progress and not at the same time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know, it's interesting because obviously, Evvie, you've had so many conversations with people. We've had a lot of conversations with people about queerness and how it's represented or not represented on Survivor. But obviously, very different for you, Evvie, in terms of like the story they kind of told or showcased. And yet, I'm sure there's so much they didn't showcase. Like, I'm curious how what Kellie said lands with you. And just where it connects or doesn't connect.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, I relate also with what you said, especially what you said, Kellie, of like, I'm really happy with my edit, but, right? You know, like, I feel like someone who I really can't complain. Like, I really feel like we really got to see a lot of what I was doing on the island. And I feel like they really, really no complaints for what they can do in 45 minutes of television, but like, that's never going to be you. And I mean, honestly, in the now times, the thing that is the weirdest for me is just that, like, I have changed since Survivor, and I use different pronouns and stuff. And like, that is honestly pretty jarring for me to watch back. No one's fault, but like, you know, that's just how it is.
Of course. Yeah.
But I do think it's funny, like, you know, I went out there, I wore rainbow underwear. I was like so nervous that like, I was like, it has to be part of my story, you know? But in retrospect, I'm like, look at me. There's no other way to tell my story. And I think maybe, you know, someone like you, Kellie, who maybe can, you know, quote unquote, pass as straight in the world, they were able to kind of erase that more than, you know, would be possible with other people. And it's a huge shame, and that happens in the world, and it happened on Survivor, and that freaking sucks, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I really relate to what you just said, Evvie, about like, I never want to complain too much about my edit, because I really do feel so blessed, especially for like basically being in half the show. Like, I only made it to episode 8. So, you know, I'm very grateful. But yeah, I mean, so much of my like journey through casting was focused on 2 things, which was being a COVID nurse, and then, you know, my experience being a gay woman. And especially for me, like in my conversations with Jeff and stuff like that, I would always sort of talk about that idea you just hit on, which is like passing, or just like people assuming that I'm straight, or like not ever really like immediately guessing that I was gay, which, you know, for me has always been something that, like, because I didn't see that on TV for myself, like a more like traditionally feminine or whatever queer woman or lesbian on TV, like that was like such a hurdle for me to even just figure it out for myself. Like, I remember being like 15 years old on a bus to my softball game, and someone was like, they were like, oh, this guy has a crush on you. And I was like, not really caring. And I had the passing thought. I was like, am I gay? And I was like, oh no, like, I want to have long hair and I want to wear dresses. Like, that is so sad. But that was like, it was, you know, the early 2000s, aging myself. And I just like, my only representation was, you know, someone who was more like masculine presenting, which like is like, that obviously is part of the spectrum of queerness and should be out there. But for me, like, until I finally saw someone that I could like really like physically relate to, that I think I just needed that to like click in my mind that like, hey, like, this is not what queerness is about. This is not what being gay is about. It's like, it can be anybody. And so I really wanted to go on Survivor and be like, hey, I'm here. Like, you know, this can be like, you know, you could be gay too and have long hair. You know, this is like kind of unfortunate. And like Jeff and I had so many good conversations about like how that like resonated with me and like how that inspired me to play during casting. So I was hoping that would be part of my story. And, you know, I still try to like own as much of that as I can, like in the fan community and stuff now. But so many people watch Survivor who aren't, you know, following me on Instagram or are, you know, a part of all this community. So I definitely, every time I post with my girlfriend or something, there's a few surprised men in my DMs about the situation. So,
not in your DMs. Not great. But I have to ask you, because you mentioned like not seeing yourself, which is so important, that visibility and representation matters. But like, I am so curious because like similar to you, moved to college, moved to GW, something's in the water in DC. I'm like, oh my gosh, like coming out in that environment. But what was there, like, were there certain depictions of like what it was to be queer, what it was to be a lesbian that jumped out? Like anybody who you're like, oh, she's
Yeah.
like me. Yeah.
I feel like always embarrassed of this, but like it's okay.
No
All
shame,
right.
no shame.
No
All
judgment, no
This
judgment.
is
Yeah.
a safe space.
Yeah.
It
So
is.
obviously, I feel like anyone around our age who is queer liked Glee. Okay,
Yeah,
I was a Gleek, and definitely Santana Lopez and her
yes.
little cheerleader, R.I.P. Naira Rivera, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
really, that was what did it for me. And like for me personally, like obviously she's beautiful, but like to see like two like really traditionally feminine women in a relationship together, for my experience, I needed to see that. Because that was what who I'm attracted to, and like what my relationships have been like. So that for me was just like an eye opener that just sort of like allowed me to be like, it's like sitting right in front of me. It was more, it's kind of getting to an undeniable point, and that was right at the end of high school as I was going into college. So it was definitely a good like transition time for me to kind of like think about that, marinate on it, and then I got to GW. Had some experiences and felt pretty confident that I was just for the ladies. So thank you, Naya, and thank you, Glee. Of all the problems it has, we do appreciate Glee for that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's really, I really say this all the time. It's like, it's so true. If you don't have an example that seems like you, it's so hard to imagine it being you. Like, I feel like for me, in high school, the only people in my school that like, there was just like like some of the goth girls, like they're lesbians. And I was like, well, I'm not goth. I don't know. None of that seems like me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it is really, you're given, 10 million examples of people that look like you who are straight, or examples of people that, look like you, but you don't want to look like that, but you don't know what you can look like. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's really hard to like expand your imagination beyond what you actually have examples
Especially
of.
when you're like, I was living in like a small, Connecticut's very liberal, right? But it's like, I lived in this super small town with like, I had never met a lesbian in my life that I was aware of. I'm sure I have, but like I at that time, so it was like literally whatever was on TV was it, and it was like mainstream television. You know what I mean? I wasn't like popping on the L Word because I didn't even know it existed. And so it's just like the bubble that you're in. It's so interesting. But like I always think about that moment where I was like, there's no way. And I'm like, this is how like silly things, like, I don't know. I'm so grateful that so much progress has been made, both in the media and just sort of like in society. Because I imagine it would just be such a different experience nowadays than like just back, than I went back then in my day.
Yeah, 100%. And going onto that, upbringing in Connecticut and everything, how was that for you when you eventually did come out and I guess share with your family? Was that, how'd that go?
Of course. I don't mind. So basically I didn't really know, I had no idea until like late high school. And even then I was sort of like unsure, like my school was like a lot of high achieving, like everyone played a sport instrument, blah, blah, blah. So I was like very focused. I'm like a overly ambitious kid. So like, I just was like, oh, I'm not interested because I want to go to a good college. Like there were so many like signs probably, but I was just like ignoring them. And then once I started watching Glee and started to like be more cognizant of that this is a possibility, I was okay. And then when I went to college, I sort of had an idea. I knew I liked girls. I wasn't sure if I was gay or bi or what. And I just was like, okay, if anyone asks me or says anything, I'll be honest, but I'm not going to kind of like offer it up. And so nobody asked me because they all assume one thing, right? So I went to college and luckily I lived on like this really tight knit floor when I first, I lived in Potomac Hall.
Yeah, I was going to ask what building, what floor?
I was at second floor Potomac. It was really, really small. And so I had a lot of like really good friends. And then there was a girl there who I became involved with. One of my friends was like, what's going on? And that was a really easy way for me to sort of come out to like my friends. And she was so sweet. We are no longer that close, but she was basically like, I was like, yeah, think I kind of like her. Like, I don't know. I was like, maybe I'm bi. And then like a week later, she was like, it's okay if you're just gay, Kellie.
Yeah.
I was like, I think you're right. So,
Yeah.
and then I mean, my coming out to my family went very well. But I was really, really nervous. And so I basically avoided going home for all of college. I would always find a summer job. Like I did eMERGE, I worked the ambulance at school. So I would like stay and do like events. I would work commencement every year. Like I was just like always just trying to stay in DC because it was the first place where I felt like I could be myself. And, there was nothing like weighing me down. Whereas like when I would go home, it wasn't necessarily anything specific, but I just was nervous. Both my parents are pretty liberal, but my mom came from a very conservative family. And so I had all this like worry of like, am I going to cause a problem for her? Where like, if she's supporting me, is her or her parents or her like brother or sister going to have a problem with this? And it's going to cause, this is the kind of things that run through your head in this decision. And so, once I got to the end of college, I hadn't really had anything like super, super serious, but then I started, seeing my fiance, and it was toward the end of college, and I was like, oh, like this is getting kind of real. Like now there was like something that would be like hiding this part of myself would be like so difficult that I basically broke down one day at the dinner table, and my dad could tell I was upset. And then he came up to me in my room, and I think he kind of knew. And so I just like confirmed it, and he helped me tell my mom and everything. It was very emotional. My mom was like, why would you ever think that I wouldn't support you? But everything went great. They literally love Gabby more than me, I think. So I'm very, very lucky to have like a extremely positive experience with my family. And also my fiance's family, like super supportive and everything. So that's been really nice. But it was like, I think it's like, for me, I think about like, I had such a positive environment. I lived in like all these liberal spaces where like acceptance was like paramount. And I still was so nervous. And so when I hear other people's stories and just like, of like not having that and like having active, homophobia and things like around you I'm very grateful for the experience, but it's hard no matter what, and no matter how positive or great things are, it's always so difficult, which I think can be hard for some people to understand.
No, I think that's beautiful though, like that you're sharing that, because like I relate so much to your experience, and it's like therapeutic for me to be in this conversation with you, because I think about like moving to DC from New Jersey, and like most summers I stayed in DC. Like it felt like the gayest place in the world.
It really is
amazing. It is. Like literally, look outside. Like it's
GW is so gay.
Multiple gays. GW is so gay.
Which I did not know until I went, and I was like, someone was looking out for me when they said
but that's like part of what I want to mention is that, and you really hit the point home already, but like going into this space where it is so gay and so like accepting in so many ways and so much representation is there. Like I could tell you probably from like our orientation at GW, which I'm sure is similar to you, they had these little skits that they had the students do, and there are probably multiple ones that are like, hey, I think I'm gay, and then like an accepting parent like, oh, it's okay, like we'll be there to support you. Like there's all that stuff.
That's literally why I did orientation.
Well, okay, it's like to tell the gays that it's okay.
Because I went to my orientation, and like it was a guy, but I remember when they do these things called diversity circles, right? And so everyone just like stands up and talks about like whatever like makes them diverse, or like their experience at the school or whatever. And I remember like there was like more than one guy who was talking about their experience coming out or being gay, and I was like, my little mind was like shook. And so then once I was at GW, I was like, it was more gay men on the cabinet at that time, and so I was like, I want to do this for women. Like this is it was so important to me to see that. And so if I can, be like a female representation for this, or, and we ended up having like a super queer cabinet. It was literally amazing. Like multiple queer women, men, trans, it was awesome. And that like, I got to be able to sort of like pay it forward a little bit and like have like girls come up to me like afterwards, which was so cool. And like, I really appreciate GW for It has some problems, but that was a good thing.
Oh, totally. I want to actually ask you on a related note, because it's interesting that you had this experience as a student, but like thinking about the Survivor fandom, obviously your queerness wasn't necessarily super visible on the show, but there are so many fans who are aware of just you and Gabby and your queerness and all that now. Like, are there conversations that you have where people coming up to you to like let you know what that representation means? I'm so curious.
Yeah, totally. I mean, every time
fans.
That's like my favorite thing. If anyone comes up to me and like talks about that, like nothing like touches me more. I've had a few like, especially like I've had like queer women nurses reach out to me like over DM, which is like so awesome. Just like my little niche. And, you know, I've had like younger girls like send me messages being like, you know, I'm not out to my family, but like, I saw that you were queer, like this, I really felt seen and by you. Like that is like, I could tear up like literally why I did Survivor. So.
I love that.
I'm emotional.
I love that.
Me too.
That really is the best part. And I really just want to affirm also that like it freaking sucks that wasn't shown on the show, but it is still having a major impact on so many people, you know, like you being on the show and people like having, you know, seeing you on social media and everything, like knowing you're lesbian. It really does fucking matter.
I wish it was on there, you know, but
yeah. Well, I wanted also, I think one question that I get a lot is like why particular like words feel right to me or not. And so it seems like, so like I got a lot of questions like why is queer the right word for me at the time I'm filming? It seems like lesbian is like the most ideal word for you. Yeah, I'd love if you could explain to people, you know, why that's the word that why that's the word that you like for you.
I mean, I guess for me, like, I mean, I think about queerness as sort of like a, you know, larger umbrella, and I would definitely fall under that. But I've like never had any romantic feelings for a man. You know what I mean? Like, it just never happened. I feel like, you know, I could recognize people being attracted, but like when I think about like sexuality or whatever, like when I would like explain to like people always ask me like, how did you know or whatever. Like I would always say, like, I never really got like butterflies in my stomach. I never got nervous to like go hang out with a guy, you know. And then if I liked a girl, like it was very clear. I knew, I felt it, and so it's like I never had that experience with a guy. So for me, it's just like that's just how I've always defined myself. And there was like a brief period of time when I was like, oh, maybe I'm bi, but that was just for me. That was just me trying to like society or whatever, make it easier, especially like the time that was like, you know, early 2010s. But yeah, I've always just sort of been like, I've always just kind of known that I'm just for the girls.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't point it out, but you are wearing a shirt that says "girls."
Well, that was intentional.
On the nose, a little on the nose. We love
that's
to see
awesome.
it. Yeah,
that's awesome, and thank you for sharing that. I just know people really like have a lot of questions about terms and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
totally.
So I think that's great.
No, I love
that's
that.
Great. And yeah, and that's the other thing why it is like just so nice. I mean, like you said, there were 3 queer women on your season and you all are so different. And like, it is so that is the coolest thing, is to not have to have like, to have, you know, a multiple representation where you can have, you know, like a white lesbian, you know, and other players with different identities, and actually get to like see that full spectrum. So it's not just like, this is what a queer person,
this is the token one person on the season who's the gay, you know.
Yeah,
that's cool. And I like that, you know. I think I said it before, it's like it's kind of nice that doesn't have to be the whole story, right? But at the same time, I'm like, oh, this was like kind of special. Like me and Couture are on the same tribe together. Like how many times have you had 2 queer women on a tribe together? Like just, you know, and Sabaya was such a huge pre-merge character, and for that not to be talked about either. But it, you know, there's only, even with 90 minutes, there's only so much time. And so I do get it, but it was kind of historic. So I wish that it was highlighted a little more, but you know, we're trying to keep everyone in the know.
Maybe not since Survivor Vanuatu, maybe like literally, possibly that there's been 2 queer women on the tribe. Yeah. So how was that a big part of your and Couture's relationship out there? Was that something you were talking about?
I mean, I think it's certainly like I remember talking to Couture about this earlier, and you talked to her about it too. But like I told my tribe like immediately, we're doing introductions, and I was like, I'm engaged to like my girlfriend, which makes it so easy to come out, right? Because it's so hard to come. It's just like having to come out in like different spaces. Like every time you change a job, it's just scary and like difficult and like adds a layer of complexity. So it does the same thing in Survivor. I wasn't like super concerned that I was going into any space where I would experience any sort of like discrimination or anything, but it's still something that has to be said. And I was like, I want to be myself. Like I was all about authenticity in terms of like for the game and also in life. And so I said that, and Couture was next to me. She was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm queer too. And, blah, blah. And that was like, I remember talking with her, and she's like, that just made it so easy because she wasn't in a relationship at the time. And so for her to just be like, me too. And like, that conversation we had, it's another instance where it's like, it is hard to come out, and like, it would be hard for her to just sort of like maybe say that without having like an easy in during those introductions. And so I think that just made it easier for both of us, like right off the bat, to just not have to like think about this as something that could be like a problem or something that had to be revealed later on in like a dramatic sense. It just like became the norm, and everybody knew, and it was easy. So, anything, I am a gamer, so anything I could use to like relate to people, I certainly will. And so definitely, I'm sure that was helpful for our like early stages of relationship, but I don't think like it like super influenced how things went like long term. But I do think it was helpful for both of us to just feel more comfortable in those like first few days, which can be difficult and awkward.
100%. And I feel like that relates back to also what you were saying about like your growing up environment too, where it's like, it's one thing to be in an environment that's like quote unquote accepting, like where that's just kind of like the vibe, but you don't really know that unless if you're the only person, or if there's no one else that's out, if there's no one else you can actually talk to and relate to. And like the difference between, like your parents generally, or my parents generally saying like, it's okay to be gay, but like, why is there no one gay around us ever? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and then, you go into Survivor and to like have that right off the bat. And it's like, wow, I'm not alone in this. And I imagine, I don't know if this feels true for you, but maybe there's also an element of like, oh, I don't have to like, therefore hold the mantle of all lesbians like on my back, or if I do something wrong, that's all queer people. It's just so much.
So true. I do think people add extra pressure, or at least I did, to myself because I wanted to like represent well, right? For all the different identities of that I identify as and was bringing into the game. Like and that's maybe like, putting pressure on myself. That's not necessary, but I think a lot of us do that, especially people who are queer and like are coming into reality TV or doing these shows. And it's like, we are so cognizant of the privilege to like be vulnerable that like I wanted to go out on there and do that. And so that was, yes, I'm there to win, but that was really important to me also. And I trying to like, it almost, not that it makes it more difficult, but it is like an extra layer of complexity. But I think many people who play Survivor, whatever sort of minority that they exist in or whatever they're trying to represent, like carry something like that. And so we all have different things that we're sort of, bringing with us into the game. And so, it's interesting, but I don't like, I'm happy I came in with that like pressure because it was ultimately important to me.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because obviously it's pressure on you, but it's also motivation, right? And like, I want to like kill it for the queers or whatever. And then there's also like, if you had gotten a final tribal council, you could have been like, I want to be the first lesbian winner of Survivor. Although it turns out in retrospect,
I said that in all my pregame press. I was like, I can't believe there's never been a lesbian. And now when Erica came out, everybody was like, Kellie is wrong. Like, I was like,
you should have known that, Kellie. How dare you?
My gosh. But I was like, I'm thrilled. Are you kidding? If I couldn't do it, like, I'm glad someone got it done before me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All my pregame press is now, not accurate, but.
Well, still, we didn't vote for Erica knowing that, but I would say extreme happy coincidence for me.
Extreme happy coincidence.
it was Erica's vibes. You knew, but you didn't know, but you knew.
I knew I loved her for a reason.
Exactly. But no, I think this is like so interesting because it brings me to something I'm wondering about for you, Kellie, which is just Survivor specifically. Like, were there any? I mean, I know that you became a fan in the pandemic, right? In the pandemic, the Netflix era of things.
Yes, I'm the Netflix era.
Yes, we love that. We love to see it. Actually, I will say, like, I'm so thankful for Netflix in that era because Survivor used to be the show that people said, like, is that thing still on? Like, what are we doing? And now there's so many people discovering it. But were there any characters, whether queer or not queer, that just like resonated with you from what you saw in Survivor?
I mean, so many. Now, like the first season I ever watched, my friend, who was also a nurse, we were like chilling during the end of COVID, and like no one wants to be with us because obviously. So we were up in Cape Cod and like the middle of the winter, and it was New Year's Day, I think. So we're like a little hungover. And she was like, "You're Kellie, like I've been watching Survivor for the first time because it was on Hulu and Netflix. Like, I think you would like it. Like, let me just put it on." And so she put on Heroes vs. Villains. Incredible. Obviously, like, I mean, I don't even know any of the people, but even in my like slightly not feeling great state, I was like, this is amazing. And obviously, you know, I am now friends with Parvati, but I love her. She was the first person that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my kind of girl. Like just to watch, like, you know, a woman like sort of like own their femininity, but also like their ruthlessness, like really spoke to me. And I really admire that about her. And then so after I watched Heroes Villains, I went back and I like Googled like best seasons of Survivor. And so I went back and watched, like, I think I started with Pearl Islands, and I just sort of like bounced around based on this list I found. And then when I started again, like when I watched the Black Widow Brigade, you know, I'm a nurse, so I love Cirie. So to see like Parvati and Cirie work together, like those are like probably my two like earliest favorites who really, I was just like, oh my God, love them. Love the female power, like love the, you know, slitting throats. It was just great. And I always think about that, like bite the hand that feeds you, like the apple conversation with James and Parvati.
Don't bite the apple. Don't bite the apple.
And then they just totally didn't assume she could do it. Anyway, that whole, like watching that, I was like, this really speaks to me in a way where I could like, you know, I'm a nurse and I don't really get to be competitive. And so I just felt like that was such a great like intersection of like, women are allowed to be powerful and like spicy and like manipulate and it's, you know, it's cool, it's allowed, and they crushed it. So that was where I really got like super, super hooked into Survivor. And then I just went on a tear, like started watching all through like the 20s and 30s and around. I applied like around when I was watching like Cambodia Ko Rong, which is when 41 was airing. And so the casting first called me and they're like, "Ooh, your assignment this weekend is to watch season 41. And boy, was I shocked by what was happening. That's my Survivor journey, I guess.
It's awesome though too, and it's interesting. I don't know why, like as someone who has always been a big, like my first season was Cook Island, so that's when I was exposed to Parvati. But it's interesting that you talk about like just why she resonated and why even Cirie resonated and why just some of these women resonated, because for me, like when I think of the representation we've seen, like I don't feel like I ever connected honestly as a fan with any like specific queer representation along the way. It was a lot of these women like Parv, like Cirie, who were just so much more like cutthroat in different ways, or just like had this thing about their identity that was unexpected or not what you would put into a box. Like you couldn't put them into a box, and it was so awesome. And I think that's still why, like I was doing a podcast like maybe a year and a half ago, or like I don't even know when it was, with like Carla and with Gia Worthy, and we were talking about queer people, and we started to get into all of these women who, as far as we knew at the time, were not queer, but like still inspired us as queer icons, so to speak. So it is interesting.
Well, I mean, and I think I don't know, I also like fell in love with Parvati watching her game as well, like even though again very different to like who I am, but there's something about I feel like the shorthand for Parvati is like hot girl who manipulates the men, but that's so like so not what it is. It's like not that's a fraction of the thing, but like so much of her actual dominance and brilliance is also in her ability to connect with women. Also, like that is like actually the secret sauce that gives her all the power. And the men is like, ha ha ha, like, well,
exactly. Like she took all the women to the end. Like that was really what that's the relationship she built and fostered and kept. Yeah,
Right,
Iconic.
exactly. So yeah, it's really cool. And like can only imagine then you go from there to actually being friends with Parvati,
She's the best.
the true survivor dream.
It is, yeah, living the dream. She's the
Yeah.
best. I really, she's been such a like guiding light for me through all of this, you know, all the ups and downs of being on reality TV. So I'm eternally grateful to her. So.
I was gonna say I want to ask, and I feel like you've talked about this. How did you become friends? I swear I just saw something about this, but on this podcast of queer iconotry, I figured I'd ask for the record.
Sure, yeah, I did talk about it. I had not talked about it until very recently because I was like, oh, you know, I'm trying to abide by the rules, as blurry as they are these days. So no shade, but yeah, so
no shade, but
I told on a different podcast.
It's confusing, yeah.
Anyway, circling back, so my fiance, she works in like brand management. She does like Instagram, you know, high level stuff, but also would do like Instagram ads or whatever. And she was working for a company that had done like work with Parvati before, like, you know, like ads for they're in Target or whatever. And so they had a little bit of like a rapport, and they had been on Zooms together and stuff. And then once I got very deep into casting, you know, somehow Parvati became aware of this information. And I was out in LA actually when I got engaged. Funnily, the day before was the first day I met.
Congratulations.
She like
belated congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's been super delayed thanks to Survivor. And so, yeah, we met up when I was in LA, and we just sort of like immediately hit it off. I think we have like some similarities. And we had like a great time. We walked down Abercrombie, like got coffee, helped me with my wardrobe. And yeah, ever since then, we've just been like super close. Like, I don't know, it's just one of those like organic, like totally works things. And I got to be her little queer guide when she was starting up with May, which is super cute. So that is the tea that everyone has been wondering about. But
so
it's nothing crazy. It was pretty organic.
Yeah.
No, it's so special, and it's so cool. Like I do think that is a particular type of queer relationship that people who haven't experienced it might not know about, of like, you know, the elder queer, meaning not in age, but in like,
I know
being
she's
outness.
like 10 years older than me.
Yeah, exactly. But like, you know, helping a person like through that and like guide and like just hold their hand a little bit through that. I think like most of us are, if we're lucky, have someone in our life who played that role. And that's really freaking special that you could do that for a Survivor queen. So that's special.
I know. I'm honored.
Total side note, just to reference someone else we interviewed on the podcast last year. We spoke with Hai, and there was that Hai Romeo dynamic where Hai, as like the younger queer person, was almost mentoring Romeo on his journey and coming out to his family more. And also, we love to see it, like just the learning all around. Age is no limitation. Like we love it. We love it.
Yeah,
and
no, you go.
So it's like, I was gonna say, you never know what's gonna happen. Like 5 years ago, I did that a little bit for a friend of mine, and now she's my partner. You know, you never know what you're gonna get.
Love that for you.
I mean, the more queer people there are, the more of them you can date. You know, but
exactly. Selfish motivation.
Highly selfish. No, but seriously, it is just like really special, and there's just something of, it doesn't matter how old you are, like everybody has this, there's some just like cornerstone foundational experiences and this like special magic of a person discovering their queerness for the first time. Like that's why I got my yay tattoo. It's like that era, like, you know what I mean? It's like it's magic.
You get like the twinkle in the eye, you know what I mean? I remember when Parvati called me the first time about May, I was like, oh, it's done. Like,
you're done.
Like we're gonna fall in love. It's so cute. They're literally adorable. So you know, and like I love to see that for other people, and like other people in my life outside of Survivor I've done this for, and it's like it's great. I'm so honored. I feel like there's like real age and there's sort of like queer age also.
Yes.
And so that I think that concept you can kind of see with like Romeo and Hai and stuff, and it's nice, you know. That's why like representation in like on TV is important, but also like even in like your daily life and space, like, you know, like you would think that this person might have like so many queer friends because they live in New York or LA, but like they might not, because there's, you know, it
Right.
is can be hard to find that space if you've never like existed in that yourself before. So, you know, you always, by just like being yourself and out, like you're still like showing up for like everyone, you know?
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
100%.
So
100%. And the
beautiful.
more, you know, if it's safe and, you know, and okay for you to be out, you don't know who's sitting there waiting to meet one queer person to be able to like talk to them, you know? So like
Mhm.
it really, yeah, it's something really special that any individual person can put out into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's freaking cool.
It's so cool.
Okay, I have a question. You know, this is airing. Obviously, it's Pride Month, and something I like to know about during Pride Month is some queer love stories. So, Kelly, can you tell us more about Gabby? What's the proposal situation like? Give us
Of course. I will. Well, Gabby and I have been together for a very long time, almost 9 years. Long time.
Wow.
So we met in high school, actually.
Wow.
When we were 17. What? Again, I'm just
Ooh.
going to tell the story. Hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for this, but we actually met in line to meet Naya Rivera.
What?
No way! You're really bringing all your
it's all coming full circle.
Yeah,
and I told us on the island, and it was a real hit of a story, so I totally thought I was going to make it, and I'm still mad. But anyway, so we were like 17, like going to meet Naya Rivera, like who was in line to meet Naya Rivera? You know what I mean?
Like,
Anyway,
just
so we
totally
just, like,
straight people.
Totally straight.
100%.
Yeah. It was at AT&T in Edgewater, New Jersey. It's so weird.
She was signing autographs in AT&T.
I don't know.
Edgewater, New Jersey.
I have no idea why. But so we were there and we met and like we like exchanged like Facebook, whatever. And we had like a little like, you know, texting thing. But then we went off to different colleges and we didn't even like say that we were gay. You know what I mean? We were both like, still, like in the closet and stuff. And so we had like a little bit of like a thing over text. And when I came home for my freshman year, like first winter break, she went up to college in New York and I went down to DC. And then, you know, it's sort of like obviously the distance fizzled out. You know, she had a long-term girlfriend in college. I, you know, did my thing. And then
did my thing.
I'll tell Matt off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, name names.
No, well, I mean, maybe. And so she just like after, you know, towards the end of college, she was just sent me a text one day, and it was like there's someone in my group for a project that made me think of you, blah blah blah.
Oh,
and literally from that text, like we were just again off to the races. So it was my senior year. We were just finishing up. I went to visit her for spring break. We kissed through the car, couldn't even get out of the car. Yeah, it was cute. And then we've been together ever since. So thank you. I owe a lot to Glee.
Wow. Thank you, Glee. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's our little story. And then engagement, we probably would have gotten engaged way earlier, but obviously I worked during COVID, which was very traumatic for me in New York as a nurse. And so that sort of set things back a little while. And then, so it was 2022, I think we went out to LA just for like a fun like trip. And we were going to go to Joshua Tree and like San Diego, big trip. And we went to Malibu. We like kind of snuck onto this beach and Gabby was like super stressed and nervous. And I should have known. I remember like before being like, she was like, we should take cute pictures on the beach and blah, blah, blah. I was like, people are going to think we're getting engaged. Like, if we take pictures. And she's like, I know, I'm such a disappointment, blah, blah, blah. Like really laying it on thick. And then it was like, we were like basically all alone in Malibu, like sunset, gorgeous. Like the photos are so nice. And it was like super romantic and alone, which I wanted. I didn't want an audience because that just stresses me out. And it was really sweet. And then she's been so gracious and amazing about waiting to get married because of Survivor, because that was like while I was in casting for 43, 44, like right at the end. And then again, it was like a whole nother year. So we're getting married next October.
Wow.
Finally. Very excited.
Wow.
So it'll be an event of like, you know, it'll be like almost 10 years. So
breaking news. Wow. Yeah.
That is my story.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful and sweet. I love that. That
It's
really
cool.
is. That's a theme in everyone's engagement story.
cry.
Like, my partner was being so fucking weird all day.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, why? Also, she had like a camera tripod and it had like a attachment to like get it on there, but she had to order like 3 different ones and she kept ordering them to the hotels we were at. I'm like, you're really committed to this.
Wow.
And now I'm like, Jesus, Kelly, like, how could you
Yeah.
not have realized that this was like bizarre? But it was really, it was
I
perfect
think
and
this
exactly what I wanted.
possibly reveals some blindside detection problems, Kelly. I think
Oh.
we need to. Sorry.
I know, right?
How
Oh,
dare you?
I should have known. Yeah,
You
what the
know,
hell,
There's
guys?
no way
guys?
you could have known. There's no way you could have known.
Of course
Oh
not.
my gosh, no.
Oh my God, that's funny.
But I want to ask as a follow-up because there's so many different there's a lot of queerness in DC, in New York,
Yeah.
but you have been in a relationship for most of this. Like, what's like the queer scene that you've been exposed to in New York? Like, are there favorite places or things to do? I'm so curious. I want the New York Survivor fans especially to like know what
Where
queer
they can
stuff
find me?
is
No.
up. Yeah, no,
I mean,
not
Yeah, I was gonna say,
where
the
they
only
can find-
places you
no.
want them to know about. Yeah.
Yeah, not where they could find you. No,
well,
please.
honestly, I feel like I have been to Cubby Hole, which is the
What?
lesbian bar of New York.
Oh,
So that's a fun one. That's probably my favorite because it's nice to be in like a space like that.
mhm.
I do we celebrate Pride every year. Just go downtown, like NYU area, Washington Square Park, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then there's a watch party in Brooklyn that's hosted by Gay Regatta. That is a queer survivor space that I am obsessed with, and you will definitely see me there. I don't know. I mean, that's sort of my main like spaces that I will go to. But honestly, it's been kind of great for me in Survivor. I've actually met so many other queer women and people, like more than I think I would have normally, just because I've been in this like long-term relationship and I have like my work friends and stuff. So I always wanted to have more like queer friends, and this world has opened that up to me like so much more, which is pretty awesome. It does speak to like that the diversity initiative is actually making progress here, right? Where I'm able to like meet so many like different identifying people from Survivor, which is awesome. So that's been a real nice extra blessing.
Yeah, and not a question, but just a reflection from like I feel so thankful that like especially during your season, I was at these different watch parties for RHAP and I'm like seeing you in action and just like seeing people interact with you and get butterflies going up to you and I'm like she's just a human, like she's a person, like you could talk to even still I feel like I see it, and I am just always I don't know, I'm just so amazed and heartened by how much of an impression you left on people. Like regardless of what the show showed, like you are an icon for so many people. And I wish you could be in all the conversations that like people are like, oh my God, I love Kelly. I want to talk with Kelly. I want to get to know Kelly. Oh my gosh. So I just want to recognize that like we talk about the narrative and how it can be limited, but they did the damn thing, or you did the damn thing, at least in terms of like people walking away loving you from the season. So
that's really been so nice, and I feel crazy every time someone's like nervous or anything to meet me. I'm like, guys, like I'm just hanging out. Like I don't know, I'm not even that good. I got 10th place. No,
I mean, 10th place because you were so good. They were terrified of you. Come on.
That's
you
real.
too, Evvie.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. Middle tier placements because we're scary. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, there is something to that. But
yeah.
I mean, I always say I'd rather go out of threat and go all the way to the end and not win. So go big or go home, baby.
No, that's right. And I like, again, like, not everyone that watches the show knows that Kelly the badass lesbian was taken out for being a threat, but people know that Kelly the badass woman was running her tribe. People were afraid of her. And, in a season full of like powerful women really was like a theme in your season.
Totally.
Like, you were definitely a stop along that way. So please, it's known. It's known that
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Evvie.
Is.
Oh my gosh. But we did have a great, powerful women's season. I'm so
absolutely
proud.
Absolutely. They were quaking. Yeah. Okay, we kind of got this little, but is there any? We like to ask everyone, what are you doing for Pride? So you said
Right.
you're
Washington Square
downtown.
Park.
Are you a dyke marcher? What's
I haven't made any like big plans yet, to be honest. So usually I'm like a dartier, I've done
Mhm.
I've
day
done
party for the uninitiated?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of the parades. I've been in them and watched them, and I feel like I'm too old to stand in the sweat for a long time, and it gets so crazy down in the West Village. But I like to be in that area and feel the energy and kind of just vibe around. Like that's my favorite part about Pride. I feel like if you go, I mean, honestly, anywhere in the city, but especially if you kind of go towards where the parade is, like literally everywhere you go is a queer space, which is so not the norm, and it's so much fun. So I try to just like get my little crew and go down there and have a good time. Probably wear this shirt, and
So to be clear, you're not taking offers for like being on people's parade floats, being the grand marshal of the parade.
I mean,
getting the key to the city. Like I don't.
I'll take any and all. You can put me on a float if I don't have to march. You can put me on something and like just push me along.
Okay,
that would be fun if Survivors do one.
That would honestly be so fun.
Let me just
email
PR real quick.
We should do that for the podcast, Evvie. Like, come on, why wait for Survivor to get the float? Rob Cesarino could get the float.
Shauna. Yeah.
Talk to people.
Yeah.
Rob can do that. You know what? If he wants us back on any recap shows, Evvie,
that's right.
Rob's gonna have to make that happen. So.
Hard line. Yeah. Well, Kellie, this was so fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate you sharing yourself and your story with the listeners here. And I think it's gonna be really nice for a lot of people. So thank you so much
for having me. I'm so honored, and this is such a great thing you're doing.
Kellie, any closing words for the people just to end the episode? I know, a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure. The thing I always say is just, what the hell, guys? I don't have, that's all I got for closing remarks. I just have shock and despair. But
a classic for a reason.
A classic. But I love this space. I think it's amazing you guys are doing this. And, hopefully we'll have so many more queer people to come on from 47 and 48. Looking forward to it. I'll be rooting for them.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm Grace Leeder. I use she, her pronouns. You can follow me on social media at Hi From Grace, and make sure you buy a buff from robhasawebsite.com/pridebuff.
Yes, and I am Matt Scott. I use he, him pronouns. You could follow me on social media at MattScottGW, and you could get a Pride Has Spoken shirt at robhasawebsite.com/store.
And I'm Evvie Jagoda. I use they, them pronouns. You can find me on Instagram at Evvie Jag and on Twitter at Evvie Jagoda. And as a reminder, all the proceeds from both the shirt and the buff will go to Point of Pride. Please buy a product today. This was the Pride
has spoken.
It's so bad.
Pride has spoken. We did it.
Bad. We did.
Just because we're recording, can we just do it like one? Just say that last.
Yeah.
Line one more time. I don't know why I'm making us do this.
No, it's good. This was the Pride
has spoken.
Matt, you say it so slow.
Wait, one more time.
We're done. This was the Pride
has spoken.
It's wait, one more. I'm starting too fast. This was
the Pride has spoken. Leave all these in.
Yeah, leave all these.
Leave them all in. Yeah.